Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the BMS Performance podcast, Talking Recruitment. For those who don't know BMS, we are a specialist sales recruitment consultancy, and we've been established for 30 years. My name is Mike Leather. I've got 13 years experience in recruitment, 10 years at BMS. I have privilege and pleasure of leading the largest sales team in the company, and joining me today is one of those people, Laura Tucker. Hi Laura, great to have you on here.
Good morning. Thank you, Mike. Really good to be on. Thanks for having me.
Excited for the conversation. So each week we're going to be talking about a new topic in relation to sales recruitment. Before we get into any of that, Laura, why don't you give the audience just a brief intro into yourself, what you do for the company, and also a bit about how you got into recruitment in the first place?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I will give a potted history. I joined BMS as a graduate, background in languages, my degree. So probably not necessarily related, but I joined the business in 2005. I've been here coming up just over 18 years now. So I have worked across all our divisions. So in the sales team, I have worked in construction, FMCG, business to business, and for the last 12 years, I've made my home in our medical division. So working with healthcare and medical device clients. I've worked with candidates, I've worked with clients on from a startup to a corporate business. So I think I've done most of everything that we do, and enjoyed it all. So hopefully a bit of experience to bring to the table.
Yeah, loads of wisdom and experience to bring, and you've pretty much done it all, haven't you? Master of all trades almost. So the subject we wanted to talk about, and we agreed to talk about today, Laura, was the benefits of recruiting from outside of your industry sector / recruiting outside your traditional profile, wasn't it? So, Laura, what was the reason that we decided to talk about this particular subject at this moment in time?
I think this topic's a really interesting one because it spans all industries, but certainly I've noticed in the medical devices industry, this has been a real topic of discussion. It is a challenge. The landscape that we're seeing post-COVID mini boom, that we saw, last year, it's now a different set of circumstances out there. The economy has definitely had like a knee-jerk reaction for a lot of people. So the experienced salespeople that might have been actively looking or willing to go onto the market and tentatively look are not doing that because there is that fear and that nervousness. So companies are finding their recruitment needs are still there, but they can't fill them with that like-for-like person or that square peg in a square hole. They're having to think of other ways to fill that role and not leave a vacant sales territory vacant for too long.
Yeah. We're seeing it across all industry sectors. We're seeing it across commercial, we're seeing it across technical, where companies that might have ordinarily been able to recruit from a market sector or recruit a specific type of profile have found it hard due to a drop off in the number of candidates applying for adverts, the rise in the amount of candidates that are only available to actually searching and finding them. There's a lot of stuff going on. So I think the way I wanted to play this is if we think, so I'm a hiring manager, I'm really struggling to recruit for my vacancy. I've never really had a problem in the past because I've always been able to find people because I work in a market that's pretty niche. So I know everyone in the marketplace. I've been able to just contact people myself in the past, or I've done all right with getting people through from an advert. But at this moment in time, I'm struggling. Advert response is poor. I've got people agreeing to come to an interview and pulling out of interviews. So I'm having a nightmare. No need to do something different, but how do I even know what sort of skills and experience I should be looking for outside of my market sector? Like, how do I even start that journey of knowing what to recruit? Because I've always been doing what I've been doing for so long.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's a real mindset change to think, oh gosh, I've got to now look at someone who doesn't have everything I want. So what do I isolate as those competencies or those character traits that would be successful and I've got to try and extract those through a CV that doesn't really bear any relationship to my industry. So what you can do is a couple of different approaches here. You've got a few options as a hiring manager. You can you can measure your own team in terms of insights and personality and identify those core competencies or traits that you have found to be successful in your own sales team. So you could use, you can use those personality side and those insight tools. The other thing you can look at is methodology. In the medical devices market, there are a number of medtech companies that adopt the challenger sales model, and they sell in a certain way because their healthcare customers are looking for very evidence-based selling, and very much an insight from the salesperson to lead them to a different way of thinking. And so they really like that challenger model. Now, ironically, a couple of years ago, I know that David Lloyd, for example, as a business, they also used the challenger model. Now, you would think, well, how does that translate into the medical industry? But because that sales process and that sales methodology was there, actually, there were a number of people that did very, very well transferring from that into medical sales. So it's interesting sometimes that you can look at a more broad methodology and way of selling that translates, and once someone understands that, you just have to teach them the product.
It's incredible, isn't it, that you can find people who've been selling gym memberships and they can be a really good fit for a medical sales role. Because I guess for those candidates as well, it's a step up. It's progression. They've got no preconceived ideas either, have they? I know we're going to talk about benefits later on in terms of recruiting outside of your industry sector, so I don't want to go into that in too much. But I guess this way where my thought process is going with this too, and if I think about some of the advice and feedback I've give to sales leaders and hiring managers on this subject when they've really struggled, it's thinking about their route to market, the decision makers that they're selling to. Often you can sell a service, you can sell a product to a decision maker and still be able to then go and sell something else which is totally different to that same decision maker, because you understand what that decision maker's problems are, what their challenges are, what they struggle with in their role, and you're used to selling at that level. I think as well, a really great thing to look out for is candidates who are used to selling the same length of sales process, the same sales cycle length, but people who are used to managing multiple stakeholders. If it's a role selling something on a contractual basis and there's 3 or 4 directors involved in that sales process, look for people who have also had that experience in the past. And I guess as well, really thinking about what is your sales process from cradle to grave, picking out the parts of that are the most difficult, that people struggle with the most, i.e. lead generation, booking meetings, managing a sales pipeline over a period of time, and then trying to identify that in the market, so that those individuals are coming with experience of doing that, albeit selling into a different market sector.
Yeah, I agree. I can think of an example actually when I worked in the construction industry, a big blue chip, bathrooms, bathrooms and manufacturer. They actually specifically wanted people from blue chip commercial and business to business sales backgrounds who'd done that key account management, national account management type role, because they were able to look at that, that long sales cycle, multiple stakeholders in a contract or a tender process. And they're, in this particular division, they were selling to local authorities, social housing, big blue chip construction firms, where you had to go in at the top, but you had to know everyone from a C-suite level down to a local regional contact and anywhere up the chain as well. And I think a lot of blue chip business to business key account managers were trained in that way, so they understood about what you need to do to get a contract or a tender process over the line. And again, that transfers again within the medical industry, because the NHS now as a customer when you're going after procurement and getting on a procurement framework within an NHS trust, it's a very commercially led sales process.
Yeah.
So actually those B2B, key account managers can transfer very well. Similarly, when you're selling a piece of capital equipment to the NHS, a lot of people from the construction background, they have sold capital equipment in the same way. So they transfer very nicely with that long sales cycle, big stakeholder mapping, to get that big piece of equipment, that high value equipment over the line. So there's definitely parallels if you're willing to kind of let go a bit as a hiring manager and let go of your old ideal.
Yeah, 100%. It's that letting go piece, isn't it? So I guess to round off on this point, I'm the hiring manager. I've got to think about what I'm selling, who I'm selling to, how I'm approaching that sale, looking for that experience outside of my market. I'm really trying to harness those transferable skills, those soft skills, thinking about who I've got in my team that does well, why, and then trying to identify that. Laura, so in your industry specific area of medical devices, what options have hiring managers got who aren't able to maybe recruit someone who's sold something similar into the NHS? Like what are they doing? How are they filling the roles? What type of backgrounds are they going after?
Yeah, I would say this falls into about 3 key categories that I have found in the last, probably the last 12 years of doing this, but more, definitely more frequently in the last 6 months. The 3 kind of key options that you could go for if you're not looking at your traditional experienced medical device salesperson is, number 1, look at your customers and the clinicians that work within the NHS. So a lot of people now are thinking, could we take a clinician that understands our therapy area, that is our customer essentially, so they've got that empathy, the understanding of how the NHS works, what our patients would, what the patients would need at the end of it, that know and use the product on a practical basis every day. Could they be someone we train up if they've got that drive to move into sales? Now, that's not everyone, but our job as the recruitment consultant and our, as the agency working on behalf of our client, is to identify and assess those candidates that could make that move.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not every clinician that is willing or wanting or able to do that, but there are definitely some brilliant success stories for that. Yeah. The other is the up and comer profile. So the graduate or the junior person that might have studied sports science, biology, a science-based degree, certainly within the medical industry, that has maybe done some customer facing sales or business to consumer sales throughout their university degree. They might have even shadowed a medical salesperson, or they have a connection to the NHS through their family or friends. They might have sort of done something off their own back to drive their own career forward. Those are another, option that a lot of companies find to be really refreshing and actually real cost saving to them. The other option is to look at your business to business or non-medical devices sales profile. And I guess one of the things that BMS can offer their clients is that because we have a number of different sales divisions, and we interview and assess candidates across business to business, technical and construction, industrial, FMCG, etc., we can often offer our clients to look in that direction and present them with articulate, experienced, high performing salespeople from other backgrounds, sort of cross-pollinating, I guess, your sales team. So
it's true of the medical devices sector. It's also super relatable to the other divisions that we work across: commercial, construction, technical, industrial, digital solutions, etc. Whereby, if we think about reasons why candidates are unsuccessful in terms of getting jobs, it's generally down to the soft skills, isn't it? It's generally down, they lack enthusiasm, lack energy, lack drive, etc., etc., etc. So considering people from outside of the market who see it as a progressive step forward, who have got all the characteristics that you're looking for, that you can mold without any preconceived ideas, be that a junior candidate who sold something completely different, or a graduate, can definitely be a way of solving some of these recruitment issues that we're seeing companies face with, haven't we? Okay, so back into role play mode then. So I have decided to recruit out of my market sector. That's my plan. But I've only recently had experience of interviewing people from my market sector. So the interview format, the way I gear my questions, the way I assess people is focused on industry talent or people that the type of sales profile that I've always recruited. So I guess my question is, as a hiring manager, how do I then interview these people and assess them to make sure they're a fit when I don't really know a lot about the sales background, the sales process? Like, what advice could you give me there?
Yeah, you are, you're looking at a different beast, aren't you, in front of you? So it's like you don't want to be too unfair, but you want to see maybe what they've done off their own back, I think, as a candidate, if they are serious about making this transition into your kind of your industry or your world. What have they done off their own back? So, have they gone that extra mile beyond just your website to research? Have they, watched videos? Have they phoned anyone? Have they requested a sample? Have they been out and done a bit of, research in field themselves? Have they tried to shadow someone? Certainly in medical and healthcare, it's not easy to do anymore, but it's definitely ways that you can network and do things like proactively. A lot of people that have had that exposure might do a shadowing report and bring that to the interview. You want to look at people's genuine reasons for doing this. So you, as when you put a candidate on the spot, so to speak, and ask them why, you're looking for like a genuine reason why now is the right time for them to move into a new industry, not just because they want a job or the package looks good. So you're looking at like you said, that sort of sincerity, I think, and reasons beyond just a sort of a textbook approach. It might be something that's personable or relatable, or they've had a first-hand experience, or they've always had maybe the degree but never used it, and they've just sort of fallen into another sales industry, and now's the right time for them because they've built enough life experience. So you're looking at kind of that that individual, I think. If you're looking at someone who's come from your customer, so say you're a hiring manager and you're looking at someone who's been a buyer, or you're looking at that person who's been the clinician, how do they translate their world into a more commercial way of doing things? So often, if as a clinician you'll come into a sales role, can you look at things like your own deadlines, how you're KPI'd or targeted in your own role? Because the NHS does have targets and KPIs and performance objectives as well. Can you translate that and show similarities? So you've got these transferable scenarios and skills you can show to the hiring manager that will fit.
It's passion, isn't it? Substance behind why you want to get into the industry sector. Not we're not accepting wishy-washy answers and vague answers. We want to see people that have really made a conscious choice that they want to move into this market. I think, just to add to some of what you've said, and again, if I think about my own experience and what I've seen work well, and what we've also done at BMS when we've been recruiting for our business, role play exercises, to assess where they are from a foundational sales experience level, like what is their baseline, and then you can then assess what they need in terms of coaching, in terms of development. And this could be something as simple as setting up a role play meeting, giving them a scenario. This is as if you were the customer they've got come in and present to you, treat it as a full role play, phone call role play, just to get an idea where they're at in terms of their ability. Like you said before, checking for exposure to similar types of sales methodologies. We touched on Challenger, the Spin, there's Gap Selling, Medic. We could go on and on and on. Have they got experience in that? What type of sales training have they been on in the past? How similar has that sales training be to the type of sales process that you have? Personally, I'm a big fan, and you know this, and people that have got a real desire for their own personal development, and they take accountability in it and invest in themselves, and they want to be the best at what they do, and try and find out where they've done that before as well. Because if someone has got a genuine appetite for personal development and their own coaching, their own taking accountability for that, then they're probably a good bet in terms of them coming in from outside of an industry sector, because they've already shown and demonstrated that they've got an appetite for learning, and they go above and beyond and do that anyway. So naturally, you would think that they're really driven to succeed in a market sector they've not had exposure to. And just testing for resilience as well.
Yeah.
Really testing for resilience. How they've been rejected in the past. What's the experience of falling behind? What's the experience of being rejected? Because it's tough when you move into an industry sector you know nothing about it. You need people that are resilient and aren't going to give up.
Yeah, often those, yeah, you're right. I completely agree there. And, going on that personal development piece and your own attitude and drive, a lot of people I know that have done, have had a really good sports career, again, they bring some of those innate skills that sales profiles, match well to, that drive, resilience, overcoming challenges, whether that's injuries or, personal failures, that bounce back effect, self motivation to go, to keep training for something, to work on one element of your game or your, your own performance, that definitely translates so well to sales. So we've seen a lot of really strong, sports backgrounds that have done very well, because that does have, a huge similarity in terms of approach.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and likewise, those people that might have transferred industries before, and you see that on their CV, they've gone from the commercial to a technical role, and they're looking to go to medical. Well, if they've done it once, then that's a bit of reassurance there that they can make that change and they can open their own mind to change.
100%. So in your experience then, Laura, when you've seen companies that have recruited from outside of their industry sector really well and it's been a success, what have they done differently to perhaps other business in terms of that onboarding, that support, and a framework, creating a framework for this individual to be successful?
Yeah, I think once you make that decision as a hiring manager that you are going to, change what you look for and be more open-minded about the recruit, you have got to sort of remind yourselves. And I think as a recruitment business and working with clients closely, we can help here with that conversation, that if you're going to do this, if you're going to look at that junior profile, if you're going to look at that non-industry candidate, what support do you think they're going to need? And let's think about that in their development path in the first 6 months. They may take more time than the traditional person. So how do we help them get there so that they're not set up to fail? So as recruiters, our job is to have that conversation with clients and make sure they are aware that it may not be as plain sailing. It might take them longer to get that person there. Now, in terms of what they can do, you don't need a sophisticated in-house sales academy to give this new recruit everything and anything. But I think a buddying system, mentoring, whether that's people within your sales team that are senior and experienced, that would actually relish the mentoring exercise as well for their own personal development. As a hiring manager, you're killing two birds with one stone. You're developing your high achievers and you're providing support for your new recruit. There's also, looking at, look, if they haven't had sales training before, investing in some sales training courses, webinars, product training, classroom style training, I think that reinforcement though, of whatever you're going to do, whether that's just one-to-ones on a daily, weekly or bi-weekly basis, I think that reinforcement and just consistency as a manager is really important, that you're there for them so they aren't set up to fail. With graduates, don't underestimate how much sort of spoon feeding they'll need at the start. But once they get it, you've got a great investment, sort of talent pool for your wider business if they do well.
Get them listening to podcasts as well.
But
I think just to dovetail on that, creating monthly milestones. So looking at what they need to do in the first 6 months, 3 months, however long you want to set the period over, break down what success looks like in each month and create milestones. They've constantly got something to work towards. That's going to lead to getting to the point where you want them to get to. What have you seen as some of what have been the main beneficiaries then as a result of recruiting talent into a sales team from outside of the industry sector? Like, what have been the benefits that you've seen that when you've spoken to hiring managers that they've enjoyed, and and has been a result of the outcome of bringing people in from outside the sector?
I think it's, when it works, it's a fantastic, it's a fantastic exercise for companies, and some brilliant success stories. So I think the first one is you get your role filled. Okay, so sounds
Yeah,
simple, but there's a lot of companies right now that I'm working with and have worked with in the last 3 months who've had a vacancy for 9 months or more, because
yeah,
they're still waiting for that unicorn or whatever to arrive,
yeah.
and they are losing sales. They are losing out to competitor activity in that region. So first of all, having someone in there that's got the attitude and drive, who's not perfect but has got enough attitude and drive to do it and be
Mm,
successful and wants it, that is a good thing. So if you can get your role filled, that's, you're ahead of the game. Number two, you could be saving yourself money in the recruitment process, because often a graduate is going to be, dare I say it, cheaper to hire than
yeah,
a very experienced person with 5 to 10 years sales on their
yeah,
CV.
yeah.
Long-term gains, I think you are bringing in variety to your team, which is a good thing.
Mm,
I know that we here at BMS have a real variety of backgrounds, walks of life,
yeah,
personality traits, but we've got some common goals as a team and common values. So we come from, a real plethora of backgrounds, education, whatnot. But that's a good thing, because we all learn and complement each other. You don't want one type, so your own growth mindset as a team is a good thing to encourage diversity and different types. So
yeah,
having that clinician in your team when you've got 5 other really experienced medical salespeople could be amazing benefit for everyone,
yeah,
because they learn off each other. And I think then retention, down the line, a lot of the time, when you've got someone who has worked so hard to get this opportunity and made that decision to step away from their world into your world, it's a big thing for the candidate as well. So they've
mm,
not done this lightly. So if they're doing it because they want a genuine career with your business and with your team. So the likelihood is you could retain them that much longer. It's not always the case, but a lot of the time you hear that people stay longer when they've made that transition out of one industry to another, because they've made a real conscious personal life decision. So
yeah.
it's something that's really valuable to them.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess if you someone again, I've used the phrase quite a lot on this episode of making the step up, but the person that's making the step up has got a greater chance of being a long-term succession plan for the business than the person who is sidestepping effectively from one job to another
Yeah.
to sell something fairly similar salary. Um, and for those reasons, for them, it's another job. Whereas the person from outside the market, who may be a graduate, maybe a first, second, third jobber, this could be seen as a career
Mm,
for them. But underline your first point there, where you said to get the role filled, absolutely. Like time to hire, time to hire, time to hire. It's something that we talk about a lot to our clients, but the longer a vacancy is live, the more the higher the impact on the business, the more money it
mm,
costs. So time to hire is a real thing, and this is definitely a way of solving those time to hire issues and getting the vacancies filled in a shorter period of time, and adding something to your team that you might not have. Fresh ideas coming in, fresh energy, enthusiasm, that can lift everyone else up as well and be a real morale
yeah.
boost to the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, your long-term talent succession planning for your team, you're thinking, actually, well, now we've invested in that graduate, that person's going to be really good for us. We could see our next national sales manager in that person, or we could see our next
Yeah,
marketeer in that person, whatever. They are going to be someone we can do something with long term. And that's great, because that's saving you, dare I say it, recruitment fees
yeah,
down the line.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, on that note, we will wrap up this podcast. So, thank you for coming on, Laura. I love that conversation, and we'll definitely have you back on again. 100%.
Thanks very much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Cool. Good. So next week, my colleague Dean Richards is going to be joining us, and we're going to be talking about the importance of the candidate experience, which should be a real good meaty subject to get stuck into. So thanks for joining, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you all again next week.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.